ओम सर्वधर्मस्थापकस्थं सर्वधर्मस्वरूपकः आचार्याणां महाचार्यो रामकृष्णाय ते नमः. We are studying the second part of Sri Ramakrishna, the Great Master, and we are toward the end of the 14th chapter, Sri Ramakrishna's practice of Madhur Bhav, and only 2 or 3 paras were left. So that conclusion we shall read today and then proceed to the Vedanta sadhana, most important chapter. So para 18 we are reading. The master had the vision of Sri Krishna. As the master's practicing love of God as husband was now purified and intensified, he experienced in the above mentioned way the grace of Radharani, the supreme lady of Raja, and was finally blessed shortly after with the holy vision of Krishna, the embodiment of pure existence, conscious knowledge, bliss. This form of the vision also united with his holy person like all the other forms seen before. Totapuri, the Paramahamsa, came 2 or 3 months after the master had had that vision and engaged him in the discipline of the non-dual spiritual mood well known in the Vedanta. Why this is mentioned? Perfect in the practices of the Madhur Bhava, the master was, it is clear, enjoying divine bliss in that mood for a short period. The shortness of the period is not meant here at all. For some time. For some time. So that is why the Totapuri is mentioned. When Totapuri comes, then he will go to Advaita sadhana and he has already succeeded in Madhur Bhava sadhana. So this period of 2-3 months, that is what is meant, that for this small, some time, for this small time, they was enjoying the bliss of union with Sri Krishna. The word is important here. Let me read that word. Ishvara Sambhoga. Ishvara Sambhoga is the word. Sambhoga is a technical word again used by the Vaishnavas. It means, in English we can translate it as union, coupling. That means, as it has been mentioned, Sri Krishna is the husband or paramour, and Sri Ramakrishna is Radha, either his wife or lover of Krishna, and they are in union, you may say, in sexual union. That is the meaning of Sambhog. And in various ways, they are enjoying each other. So that time to mention, he has brought Totapuri there. That Totapuri came after 2-3 months. So these 2-3 months is the period, whether you call it short or long, where Sri Ramakrishna was simply enjoying the Sambhoga. We have heard from the Master himself that at that time, now Sambhoga is being explained. At that time, he lost himself completely in the thought of Krishna, and sometimes regarded himself as Krishna. So that is the aim of that Sambhu, to feel identity and regarded, and the beautiful Vedanta light is being thrown. If you are feeling you are Krishna, simultaneously you are feeling that the whole world is Krishna. That goes together. Then only the vision is real. And regarded all beings, from Brahma down to a blade of grass, as forms of Krishna. When we were frequenting Dakshineshwar and were in his company, one day he plucked a flower of grass, came to us with his face beaming with delight and said, "The complexion of Sri Krishna I used to see then." That means for some days I used to see him and enjoy the union with him. I used, having perfected himself in Madhurva sadhana, he was seeing like that. I used to see then, at the time of practicing the Madhurva, was like this. Ghas, full. Star rangta, that color is Krishna's color. So that is the real color of Krishna. In his youth, the master desired to be born again as a girl. And no desire of the master is unfulfilled. So that was fulfilled in this way. A desire under the impulse of the female mood used to arise in the master's mind in his adolescence before he left Kamarpukur for Calcutta. So it has started. Adolescence is the age when the mental moods start showing themselves. Knowing that the gopis of Raja had Krishna, the embodiment of pure existence, knowledge, bliss, as their spiritual husband through love, because they were born as women. He used to think that he too would have been blessed enough to love and have Krishna as husband had he been born in a female form. So that was fulfilled in this way, that he became a woman was inside him, he became that fully and enjoyed Krishna. Considering his male body to be an obstacle to his attainment of Krishna, he then imagined, so that was adolescence. Then he saw that Chaitanya is prescribed for man also, and Sri Ramakrishna had the experience also. Considering his male body to be an obstacle to his attainment of Krishna, he then imagined that were he to be born again, he would, because in this life it is not possible now, but it became possible. He would become a beautiful child widow with long hair in a Brahmin family and would not know anyone except Krishna as husband. So, child widow, so she does not know the physical husband at all. And she is worshipping Krishna, except Krishna as husband. Brahmin family, because in the higher caste only these child widows were there. There would be some means of bare sustenance of coarse food and clothes, minimum requirement, near the hut. And there would be some means of bare subsistence of coarse food and clothes. Near the hut there would be a kata or two of land, that is 16 upon 100 acre. That is the idea of kata. That is 1/6 of an acre. No, 16 upon 1,000. Yes, 0.016. 16 in 1,000. So small land. Small land will be attached to his kutia. Near the hut there would be a kata or two of land wherein he would produce with his own hands some greens and vegetables for his own use. And there would be with him an elderly woman as his guardian, a cow which he would milk himself, and a spinning wheel. That is what the childhood used to do. The imagination of the boy proceeded further. He went on thinking that in the daytime, after finishing the household duties, he would spin yarn with that wheel, singing songs about Krishna, and after dusk would be ardently weeping in secret from a longing to feed Krishna with his own hands, with the sweets made of the milk of that cow. Krishna also would be pleased, and coming dressed as a cowherd would eat them. This coming and going would be repeated daily without the knowledge of others. Krishna would hidingly come to her. Although that desire of his was not fulfilled in exactly that way, it came to pass in the aforesaid manner at the time of his practicing the Madhura Bhava. Because it is not necessary for him to be born again. So in this very life, he almost same thing he got when he practiced Madhura Bhava. The master realized another fact realized during Madhura Bhava, important in spiritual life. The master realized the three, the scriptures, the devotees, and the divine Lord are the one, and the one is the three. So these three are manifestations of one. That one itself is in these three. These three are one. One is in all these three. It's not in the language, but these three are one in the book. And that very one has become these three. This he realized. Bhagavad Bhakta Bhagavan. Eke teen tine ek. Bhagavad Bhakta Bhagavan. We shall conclude the present topic by recording another vision of the Master when he was enjoying the Madhura Bhava. One day during that period, while he was listening to the reading of the Bhagavata in front of the Vishnu temple, he went into ecstasy, and at the vision of Sri Krishna's luminous form, he saw that a beam of light like a cord came out of his lotus feet and touched the book, whence it touched the master's heart and remained simultaneously touching the three for some time. Three means from the Bhagavata book that beam has come, touched Krishna image and touched master's heart. So these three in one wave of the mind it is there. And remain simultaneously touching the three for some time. There arose from that vision the firm conviction in his mind that although the three, namely the scripture, the devotee, and the divine Lord, appeared as different entities, they, the master said, were one and the same thing, or in other words, they were the manifestation of the same reality. The three, the Bhagavata, the scripture, the Bhakta, the devotee, and the Bhagavan, the divine Lord, are the one, and the one is that three, he used to say. See, he had that vision actually. So, we come to the end of the Mother Bhav, and in the beginning of this chapter 15, the master sadhana of the Vedanta. Sadhana Swamiji first, as his habit, discusses the mental get-up of Thakur at that time, showing us what we should have to whatever degree possible. But that is the adhikar of Vedanta. That is the state of the mind where only the Vedanta will be realized, whether the Vedanta will be fruitful. So that is being taken up first, and that is what we should follow, and we must follow, and we can follow to the extent possible. Now, traditionally we know sadhana chatushtaya sampanna, vivek, vairagya, samadhi shat sampatti, and mumukshutva. These are told theoretically. Now let us see what was in Thakur. In addition to it, Saradananda Swamiji has given two more in the beginning and two more in the end. These four he has summed up in two. This and that, this and that. And another two in the beginning and another two in the end. So our knowledge of the fitness for Vedanta becomes more clarified, more expansive. This is what is needed if we want even to study Vedanta. So let us see that. The study of the master state perfected in the discipline of the Mother Bhav, the master now reached the zenith of the sadhana of all the devotional modes. But before recording the history of his extraordinary spiritual striving henceforth, it is good to study once his mental state at the time. The study of the master's state of mind during this time. First point, his complete renunciation of lust and go. So this Vivek and Vairagya and all right. But specifically, lust and gold are the things which are dragging the man down. And so Thakur had complete freedom of lust and gold. So that has become the essential sadhana other than the four known by us, Vivek, Vairagya, Samadhi, Shat Sampatti and Mukshutva. I remember here, one Vedantic friend in Rishikesh, when I described this, he said, yes, that we know, that is required before the sadhana chatushtaya sampanna. So, that is what Leelaprasanga adds. Perfected in the discipline of the Madhur Bhav, the master now reached the zenith of the sadhana of all the devotional mood. There is nothing more intense than that. But before recording the history of his extraordinary spiritual striving, henceforth, it is good to study once his natural state at that time. The study of the master's mind, state of mind during this time. First, his complete renunciation of lust and gold. So that is taken as the basic minimum. That is taking sannyas. If an aspirant wants to be successful in the discipline, it is about us. Huh? If an aspirant wants to be successful in the discipline of any one of the devotional modes, he will, we have seen, have to do it by shunning sights, tastes, and other worldly objects of enjoyment. So these are all enjoyments, worldly. They have to be given up, and same thing should happen with God. We have seen how to do it by shunning. So, how to do it? By shunning the externalization of the mind, by shunning sight, space, and other worldly objects of enjoyment. Whatever the worldly objects of enjoyment has to be given up, and instead of that, you enjoyment with God is the object necessary. The saying of the perfected devotee Tulsidas, namely, there is no selfish action where Rama is really true. So, without going into Rama, that idea that Rama and Krishna are same, to obtain that grace of the reality, I have to practice one of those yogas. If the aspirant wants to be successful in the discipline of any one of the devotional modes, he will, we have seen, have to do it by shunning sights, tastes, and other worldly objects of enjoyment. The saying of the perfected devotee Tulsidas, namely, there is no selfish action where Rama is. It is philosophically translated. The original Hindi says, যেখানে যেমন দাস সেখানে তার বোধটা ব্রহ্মবোধটা বাড়তে পারবে। The saying of the perfected devotee Tulsidas, namely, there is no selfish action where Rama is, जहाँ काम तहाँ राम नहीं, जहाँ राम नहीं वहाँ काज, is really true. The history of the extraordinary arriving of the master bears out this fact, and he had stood on the solid base of the renunciation of lust and God before he began practicing the devotional modes. So he has given it up there itself already. He has not taken that. Before he began practicing the devotional modes, he could master in a short period whatever mood he practiced at any time, only because he never deviated in the least never deviated in the least from that basis. So this is the basis of all the practices for controlling the yoga so that the final thing may arrive. Now in Sri Ramakrishna we shall see that in Vedanta sadhana. But here it is mentioned that he saw a little of it. He had stood on the solid base of the renunciation of lust and God. The history of the extraordinary striving of the master bears out this fact. He had stood on the solid basis of the renunciation of lust and God before he began practicing the devotional modes. He could master in a short period whatever mood he practiced, and at any time, only because he never deviated in the least from that basis. So the sadhaka is asked not to lose that. And when he becomes perfected, then only he can take the next step. And in Sri Ramakrishna, this automatically happened with the growth of the body. He could master in a short period whatever mood he practiced at any time only because he never deviated in the least from that basis. Therefore, we have to keep it clear before our mind that he was now incessantly dwelling in a place, in a region far beyond the bounds of the temptation of lust and God. So, human life, temptation of lust and God, Sri Ramakrishna had gone much beyond that. So, every fitness quality will be seen superlative in Sri Ramakrishna. That is why we have to study his life. As he was incessantly making efforts for Gopal realization for a period of 9 years, by renouncing the desire for the enjoyment of worldly objects, any name given to the enjoyment of the worldly objects is it will pull and it will put you in the same circle. Therefore, we have to keep it clearly before our mind that he was now incessantly dwelling in a region far beyond the bounds of the temptation of lust and God. The discriminate second point. So this is an additional point to the sadhan chatushtaya sampanna prescribed in the Vedantic books. So complete renunciation of lust and God. Now the discrimination between the real and the unreal, semicolon, the dispassion for the results of action in the world and the next. So, Vivek and Vairagya. Vivek is discrimination between the real and the unreal, and Vairagya is the dispassion for the results of actions in this world and in the next. So, when we do some action, we are bound to get the fruit. Sometimes we get the fruit there itself, sometimes it is put in abeyance and we will get it when we die. So, without opposing this, Sri Ramakrishna experiences all these moods. Essence of all ultimates, he was absolutely beneficent too. And as he understood and manifested in body, mind, and speech that the reality of God was the essence of essences and the ultimate of all ultimates. So he has understood about Advaita. He was absolutely indifferent to and free from any desire for the attainment here or hereafter of any object except God. So that is how we have to see in life. Vivek and Vairagya. He does not want anything of this life because they are all hollow, because they are nissa, because they are unreal. Now, third point. The six treasures of Sama, Dhamma, etc., and the intense desire for liberation. So, Vivek Vairagya, then Mumuksha and common sense. Forgetting all worldly things and other pairs and pleasures of his body, he was now so much accustomed to the one pointed meditation on a chosen ideal that his mind would in a moment be withdrawn from external objects. So he has been practicing this for all the bhavas and it is nature. So it pulls back into one bhava and makes him realize God through that bhava. In a moment, be withdrawn from external objects, get concentration it, on it and enjoy the divine bliss. Days, months, and years rolled by on the way. It is bliss, and yet his bliss, the, the divine enjoyment, would not have been even for a moment manifested, or nor could he ever lead himself to believe that there was anything but God in his desired for. So he has to get that. So he does not require anything else. As mentioned in Shamadama, there is not Samdam, Shamadama Uparati, Titiksha Samadhana Shraddha, and Mumukshuta. And the intense desire for liberation. Moksha is the intense desire for liberation. Now, two more points, which are not normally mentioned in the Vedantic books, but they will all agree that they also belong to the absolutely needed category. The dependence on God and the regardlessness version of the mother. ईश्वर निर्भरता, तज्जन्य व्याकुलता, तज्जन्य व्याकुलता. हाँ, ईश्वर निर्भरता और दर्शनजन्य भय शून्यता. So he had certain experiences, and by that he had understood that there is nothing to fear. So abhaya is essential while proceeding towards sannyas and Vedanta sadhana. So we are seeing this in Sri Ramakrishna fully, and we have to bring them to our life before we can take up Vedanta sadhana. And having unlimited devotion, faith, and dependence on the Universal Mother, the ultimate cause, as the goal, the supporter, the Lord, the witness, the abode, the refuge, and the friend. All this we see in this sadhana. The Master had not only bound himself to her in eternal loving relations, but also accustomed now himself to thoroughly to perform without fear all actions of his that comes in a rare manner. Without fear all actions of his life, big and small, at the command and limit hint of the Divine Mother. So if he gets a command or a hint, he will do that fully, 100%. For he had various proofs of the fact that on account of absolute childlike dependence on the Divine Mother, the aspirant sees her always besides him, feels blessed in always having been her sweet words and protected by her suffering. That is our mud. And it enabled them by means to tread fearlessly the path of the world. When he does not want anything from the world, so he is fearless. So these are the count, if you like, they describe the necessity and actual performance of bhaktas for one devotional mood. What the master said about his doing sadhana even after the realization of God. Thakur special. Why did the master, it may be asked, engage himself in discipline even after thus knowing the cause of the universe, as his own master had always seeing her beauty, you know. So he is putting a question now and replying. Why did the master, it may be asked, engage himself in discipline even after thus knowing the cause of the universe, that is Jagat Karan Ma, as his own mother, and always seeing her beside him. So he had that full experience. What was discipline for when one realized that she was more than one's own, she for whose realization all discipline, meditation, austerity, etc., on the part of an aspirant were needed. So all this is needed to have a vision, and once the vision is obtained, what is the necessity of doing again sadhana? Was more than one's own, she for whose realization all discipline, meditation, austerity, etc., on the point of view of the aspirant were present on the part of an aspirant were needed. Although we discussed this question before, from one point of view, we shall now say a few words on it from another sitting at the holy feet. Syntax. Although we discussed this question before, one point of view, we shall now say a few words on it from another. Sitting at the holy feet of the Master and listening to the history of his surviving, one day we found that doubt in our mind is not ready to the history of his striving. One day we had that doubt in our mind. So it is a direct reply from Thakur himself, and we did not hesitate to express it to him. We shall now describe here what he told us in reply. Look here, said the master, just as one who always lives on the sea coast sometimes feels a desire to see what a variety and number of precious things lie hidden at the bottom of the ocean. Somebody is living at the bank of the ocean, and he has heard that there are very valuable things at the bottom of the ocean. So he gets it there. So also, although I realized her and remained always beside her, I felt a desire to enjoy the mother who is of innumerable forms and is the embodiment of endless renditions, relations in as many forms and relations as she would be present to show me. So I want to see her in this form is not that form. But I want to see her in whatever form she wants to show me. Today I show you in this form, but whatever more she wants to show me, that is the nature of his mind. Just as one who always lives on the sea coast sometimes feels a desire to see what a variety and number of precious things are hidden at the bottom of the ocean, which is said to be the mine in all gems. So also, although I realized her and remained always beside her, I felt a desire to enjoy the mother who is of innumerable forms and is the embodiment of endless relations. So forms and relations innumerable. Same mother. So I want to see that in as many forms and relations as she would be pleased to show me. Therefore, whenever I desire to see or enjoy her in any particular form or relation, I persisted in praying importunately to her to reveal herself to me in that form or relation. The compassionate mother on her part made me personally do whatever was necessary and supplied me everything required and revealed herself to me in that form and in that relation. It was thus that all the various disciplines were performed. He simply wants to, that is the importance of his life in the world. He wants to see her in as many forms as she can show him. Not that I want to see you in this form. No, I want to see you in all those forms in which you can show me. Perfected in the discipline of the Madhur Bhav, the master, as we have seen, reached the ultimate plane of the sadhanas of the devotional moods. So, devotional moods plane, last plane is Madhur Bhav. When he felt the urge to perform the discipline of the non-dual mood, which is beyond all moods and is well known in the Vedanta. So, Advaita also is a bhav, bhavatita bhav, no relation. What is the relation? I am a shadow. He is reality, beyond all moods and is well known in the Vedanta. We shall now begin to tell the reader how that urge came to the master at the instance of the Divine Mother. So actually, cause of that also is mother. That means it has come from the innermost recesses of reality. And how he now realized her formless, attributeless nature, which is the Turiya state, the absolute. So all these are relations, that is the absolute. Through this we can go there, and that he became eager to see. Now some side points. The master's mother decided to live on the Ganga and came to Dakshineshwar. This is mentioned because when Totapuri will give him sannyas, Thakur will say, do it secretly. By my mother will be paid. For that he is bringing this topic, and one more point also we shall see. The master's aged mother was living at the Dakshineshwar Kali temple when he began practicing the non-dual mood. At the passing away of her eldest son Ramkumar, the bereaved old lady consoled herself with difficulty, looking endearingly on her other two sons. But soon after, when it was rumored that consoled himself with difficulty, looking endearingly on her other two sons. What is that? Hmm? We are reading about Master's mother, no? Oh, other two sons. Ramkumar passed away. So Rameshwar and Sri Ramakrishna, they were the two sons left. So when the eldest son bereaved, old lady consoled herself with difficulty, looking endearingly on the other two sons. But soon after, when it was rumored that her dearest and youngest son Gadadhar had turned mad, her sorrow and grief knew no bounds. She had her son brought home, and when his condition improved a little through various kinds of treatment and performance of propitiatory rites, that is what she believed. Hope came to her again, and the old lady had him married. But when Gadadhar returned to Dakshineshwar after his marriage and his former state seized him again, the old lady could no longer control herself. Praying for the recovery of her son, she went first to the Shiva temple in her own village and afterwards to the old temple of Shiva at Mukundapur and undertook a fast unto death. When the great god Mahadev told her in a vision that her son was in divine inebriation, she was reassured a little. Nevertheless, the world lost all its attraction to her, and she came to her son at Dakshineshwar shortly afterwards, determined to spend the rest of her life on the bank of the Ganga. For what purpose would it serve her? She thought, in remaining attached to the world in that old age, when those for whom and with whom she was in the world were one by one leaving her and the world behind. So that was her thought, that Ramkumar has gone away, youngest son is turning mad. So why should I live in this world? When the great god Mahadev told her in a vision that her son was in a divine inebriation, she was reassured a little. Nevertheless, she would, the world lost all its attraction to her, and she came to her son at Dakshineshwar shortly afterwards, determined to spend the rest of her life on the bank of the Ganga. So, otherwise, for what purpose would it serve her, she thought, to remain attached to the world in that old age when those for whom and with whom she was in the world were one by one leaving her and the world behind? We have already told the reader of Mathur's gift, and now he is finding the time of his mother's coming. We have already told the reader of the Mathur's gift of the mountain of food, resolved to pass the rest of her life at Dakshineshwar on the Ganga. The master's mother, we infer, came to the Kali temple during that time. That resolve of the old lady was fulfilled, and from that time she never returned to Kamarpukur, but spent the remaining 12 years of her life near the temple and passed away. Therefore, there is no doubt that it was during his mother's stay at Dakshineshwar the master was initiated into the mantra of Rama Vegetadari, received the image of Ramlala from him, and practiced the moods of Vatsalya, Madhur, and the Vedanta, etc. So he has found the time period of her in connection with his sadhana. But there is something important. The master's mother was untouched by avarice. So we are studying the associates of an avatar because they also have the spiritual value. So in that respect, Thakur's mother has come. We should like to tell the reader an event showing the complete lack of avarice on the part of the master's mother. Avarice means I want more and more, lower. That event took place shortly after she came to Dakshineshwar. Mathur, who I have said above, was in full charge of the management of the Kali temple at that time, when he performed various acts of merit and was freely distributing a large quantity of food, as there was no limit to his love, regard, and reverence for the master. He was always endeavoring to make some arrangement for the efficient continuance of the service to the master even after his passing away. But he never ventured to speak it out on account of the glowing renunciation he saw in the master. So when he wanted to give something, master did not accept. He has seen that. One day he was landed in a great difficulty. When to know the master's mind, he was consulting Hriday within his hearing about transforming an estate to him. For as soon as a title of the talk reached his ears, little of the talk reached his ears, the master ran like one mad to beat him, saying, "Ah, you wretch, with him whom little of the talk reached his ears. Ah, you wretch, you want to make a worldly man of me?" But this idea never left Mathur. It was always burning in his mind. However, he found no opportunity to fulfill his desire of his, thinking that such an opportunity was now afforded him on the arrival of the master's mother. So directly Thakur is not taking, so I shall go to Thakur's mother. That is how Mathur understood it, felt it. Mathur began endearing himself to her by calling her Granny. So first his name, showing a great relation, and that is, you are mine in that sense. I am yours. So a name which signifies relation brings this about. I read now. He never ventured to speak it out on account of the glowing inertia he saw in the master. One day he was landed in a great difficulty. When to know the master's mind, he was consulting Hriday within his hearing about transferring an estate to him. For as soon as a little of the talk reached his ear, the master ran like one mad to beat him, saying, "Ah, you wretch, you want to make a worldly man out of me?" So what he do? But this idea never left Mathur. It was always burning in his mind. However, he found an opportunity to fulfill that desire of his, thinking that such an opportunity was now afforded him on the arrival of Master's mother. Mathur began endearing himself to her by calling her Granny. He then started visiting her every day. Slowly he is planning. Spent some time in talking with her on various matters and soon became her great favorite. Later one day, finding an opportune moment, he made an importunate request to her, thus, "Granny, you have never taken any service from me. If you really consider me to be your own, please ask for anything you want." The simple-hearted old lady was in a great fix, for even after a good deal of thinking, she could not make out what she needed. In this predicament, she had to say, "My child, God bless you. Through your affectionate care, I lack nothing at present. When I require anything, I will ask you for it." So saying, the old lady opened her portmanteau bag box and said to Mathur, "Look here, I have so many clothes, and through your loving care, I have no trouble about food and drink. You have arranged and are arranging everything. What then shall I ask you for? But Mathur was not a person to drop the matter so early. He repeatedly requested her, saying, please ask for something. After a good deal of thinking, the master's mother hit upon something she had need of. She said, if you must give me something, please buy an anna worth of tobacco leaf, for I want tobacco ashes for my teeth. That is how the old tooth powder is to be made in the houses. Tobacco, when burned, is a very good tooth powder. That much she found. The worldly Mathur's eyes became wet. He saluted her and said, can any mother other than you give birth to such a self-denying son? So he had seen Thakur and now he sees his mother. So she, no, Thakur could not have been born of any other mother because you have that freedom from avarice. So Thakur is born to you. Saying so, he had the tobacco leaves purchased for her. Now, some other uh, some other facts about that time when Sri Ramakrishna has to practice sannyas and Vedanta sadhana. Haladari gave up worship in the Kali temple. Akshay came. So previously we have heard about this. Haladari, his cousin brother, had come and he first worshipped in the Kali temple, but then he was not against it, but he did not want that animal sacrifice, and his son died. So he asked Thakur to get shifted to Radhakanta's service. And Mathur Babu agreed and made him Radhakanta's serve. One thing. Secondly, Sri Ramakrishna's middle brother eldest brother Ramkumar had a son Akshay. And the moment Akshay was born, Ramkumar's wife passed away. So these two events, because Akshay was very dear to Thakur, during the time of the master practicing the Vedanta discipline, his paternal cousin Haladari was in the service of Radha Govinda at the Dakshineshwar temple. He was senior to the master in age and had some grasp of scriptures like the Bhagavata. He felt proud on that account. We have told the reader how he ridiculed the master and said that his spiritual vision and states were due to derangement of the brain. How pained at it, the master would run up to the Divine Mother for consultation, and how he was again and again consoled by her, and how on one such occasion Haladari used those words of ridicule which sent the master into ecstasy, during which he had the vision of a beautiful figure who instructed him to remain in Bhavamu. These events, we infer, came to pass shortly before he began practicing the Vedantic discipline. Seeing the master wear clothes, ornaments, etc., meant for ladies and live in the mood of a woman at the time of practicing the Madhurva, Haldari concluded that he was devoid of self-knowledge. When Totapuri, the itinerant Paramahansa, came to Dakshineshwar and lived there, Haldari, we have heard from the master himself, was living at the Kali temple and used to have Kali temple means that campus. He was not worshipping Kali. And used to have discussions on the scriptures with him from time to time. One day when Tota and Haldari were thus discussing the Adhyatma Ramayana, the master had the vision of Rama along with Sita and Lakshmana. They were talking, Thakur saw them. Tota came to Dakshineshwar probably by the end of 1865. A few months after it, Haldari returned from service as the worshipper of the mother owing to ill health and other reasons, and Akshay, Ramkumar's son and the master's nephew, was appointed in his place. So, actual sadhana will be described tomorrow. Om Sarvadharmasthapakastam Sarvadharmaswarupakah Acharyanam Acharyo Ramakrishnaya Te Namaha. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Hari Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu. From there, I